What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. If you were on the channel yesterday, you saw my claims of what is exactly going on in Canada and the United States right now with this whole Russia thing, with the accusations coming forward against, I guess, what they call now far-right Canadian influencers and American influencers. I wanted to shed some light onto what is happening and what exactly is going down when it comes to Lauren Chen, Lauren Southern, and those involved in certain conferences and those who have received money from other outlets, and what the government is claiming now has the right for them to investigate Canadians and essentially arrest anybody who is believed to have been spreading disinformation on any social media platform. Let's take a look at what's going on here. I want to start with Marty up north and his post that came out over the weekend over X, and we're going to get into the articles that cover what exactly is going down and why this has all happened. But Marty up north, of course, talking about the We Unify conference that happened in June, which again, I referenced in yesterday's video. I was invited to the We Unify conference because I appear as a weekly guest on Clyde Do Nothing's podcast. Clyde was invited to the conference because he's a local independent news commentator with a large following. Clyde's full-time job is repairing cars. Me, I'm a semi-retired petroleum engineer who still does odd jobs here and there. The internet is an amazing place that brought us together. The We Unify conference was held for 2 days in Victoria. It was attended by about 500 people who paid $500 to attend. I want to put notes on that one. Not everyone paid $500 to attend. In fact, some people who only went for 1 day were only charged $60 and etc. So to claim that everybody paid $500 is an understatement. I just want to correct that. I'm sure, again, Marty was writing this quickly. I don't like pointing out accuracies, but the amounts here, it says the conference grossed about $250,000. Again, I can't verify that because, again, tickets were different prices for different days based on what you wanted to do when attending there. If you just wanted to go for 1 day, if you wanted a VIP, if you wanted access to the dinners that they had, different meetings with guests, there were multiple tiers to pick from at that event. Again, I'm not trying to make Marty look stupid, just correcting it for anybody who says it was a 500 flat for everybody. The venue, meals, and security costs were in excess of $200,000. The event relied on volunteers and a few local sponsors. The organizers actually did an amazing job. My costs to attend were about $1,700, and the organizer was kind enough to subsidize me for $1,000. I went for the opportunity to share my story and meet like-minded individuals. I spent every minute just talking to people. In fact, if you were there, just repost this and say hello. Lauren Chen did not attend the event, even though she was on the billing. Again, that's questionable to me because Lauren Chen, if she's one of the head organizers, she should be at the event. The whole idea that a handful of independent Canadian content creators and somehow all financed by Russians is hilarious. In Canada, the mainstream media is financed by Trudeau to the tune of $600 million a year. If I'm getting bags of money, can someone please tell me where they're being dropped off? Thank you. Again, Allison Creekside's tweet here, because this is where, again, I mentioned on yesterday's video, there's a ton of bots and accusation coming from Trudeau's end saying that, hey, this is all them. Look, we busted them. We got them, everybody. This is a gotcha. A Convoy connection to tenant media founder Lauren Chen, who the Department of Justice alleges took an S-ton of funds from pro-Moscow sources. Chen hosted the We Unify Reclaiming Canada conference in June in Victoria this year, along with her buddy, Lauren Southern. This is post 1 of 2. Of course, they've shown here Lauren Southern's first tweet coming out on April 24th with exciting news. I'll be hosting, which again, she wasn't present for, the We Unify Reclaiming Canada conference this June in Victoria, BC. I'll also be performing stand-up comedy and taking part in a lively conversation with Lauren Southern on women in politics. Speakers include Dr. Drew, Dr. Peter McCullough, and more. Again, you can see here the some of the influencers who were asked to be there. Again, according to Marty, Lauren Chen was not there. I'm not aware of who was there. I wasn't at this conference. But I can assure you that the people I do know that were at this conference are definitely not paid by the Russian influencers, namely people like Drea Humphrey and Rebel News, who are now fighting to defend themselves, as Ezra Levant has even been called out. You can see here this year's Reclaiming Canada stars alongside Chen and Southern, Tamara Leach, Chris Barber, Art Pulowski, Eva Chipiuk, John Carpe, Rebel News, etc. Again, I can guarantee you Eva Chipiuk, good friend of the channel and friend of mine, would not take a single dollar from these outlets. Art Pulowski, same thing. Chris Barber, same thing. Tamara Leach, again, I've said, I guarantee you. Marty Up North with a good reply here. Who are the other 10 MPs? Again, there's 11 MPs in the House of Commons that are linked to China and taking influence from China and election interference. We don't know the names of those people, but this witch hunt for social media influencers doesn't make sense to me. Somebody says, I haven't seen any of your reporting on BJ Grifter. Have you done any? Because he somehow skated away with the whole mess and appeared with, when he's talking about the whole mess, essentially all of the money raised from the Convoy and Bitcoin with Peter Thiel. And he was sitting with Peter Thiel and Jordan Peterson at a Bitcoin conference instead of being charged with his co-organizers did. Allison Creekside, of course, coming out saying it's an interesting question and made it look for an answer. According to Grifter, in 2 interviews I've just watched, 1, he had good lawyers, and 2, of course, he fled the country to the United States, then Colombia, as soon as it looked like arrests were coming. No, he fled because, again, I'm going to say allegedly, even though I've seen proof that there are still wallets out there floating around that have money in them. I'm under the belief, based on what I've been shown, again, I will not 100% verify them, that there are wallets still out there with Bitcoin. So if anybody was going to flee, it's probably why. Of course, again, you have Dominic LeBlanc coming out and tweeting out that we stand with the United States on confronting Russia's aggression against democratic societies. Any Canadian aiding Russia to spread disinformation, criminal and covert activities, and corruption to undermine our sovereignty will face the full force of Canadian law. Again, threatening that anybody. This is where things are going to turn. This is where I was saying yesterday. You're going to start seeing silencing of YouTube channels. You're going to see people being scared to talk about this because they'll fear prosecution. This is the time for people to get loud, for people to stand up and say, I'm not going to be silenced. I do my taxes every single year through my accountant. I've got a paper trail. The government is free to go through my books at any time. I can assure you, I have not taken a single dime from any influencer or Russians, to be specific. You're seeing videos coming out now in the US when you're talking about different people. Like, of course, Dave Rubin coming out saying, hey, Dave Rubin didn't help the situation by saying, I didn't know it was a Russian influence channel, but I took money and I have known, I wouldn't have. You've got Tim Pool under full investigation by the FBI and the Department of Justice. But again, Rexcast labeling this Russia's useful idiots. Again, there are many people being called out, and of course the CBC taking no time to jump on board. So let's get into what exactly caused all of this and where we're at here. It says here on their article, meet the right-wing Canadian influencers accused of collaborating with an alleged Russian propaganda scheme. Again, CBC wants to label it right-wing. They're paid by Justin Trudeau. Of course, they're going to go full bore on this. Social media accounts of 2 of Canada's most vocal far-right pundits have fallen unusually silent after U.S. officials accused them of being collaborators of a covert Russian propaganda campaign. Yes, they've fallen silent because you deleted their channels. YouTube deleted their channels. Their accounts have been suspended. Of course, they're silent. You silenced them. On Wednesday, the U.S. Department of Justice unsealed an indictment against 2 Russian nationals, accusing them of setting up a conservative media outlet as a front for pro-Kremlin propaganda. The media outlet was unnamed in the indictment, but it was clear from the details that within the charges referred to Tenet Media, founded in 2023 by Canadian influencer known as Lauren Chen and her husband, Leon Donovan. So again, I will state that I don't know Lauren Chen. I don't know much about Lauren Chen. So if her and her husband are in bed with this, if they've done these things, then they themselves should be held accountable. But any time that a sponsor reaches out or any time that a conference reaches out, I'll tell you right now, I've been asked to attend certain conferences at which I've declined because I was unavailable. But anytime I was asked to speak at a conference or sign books at a conference, of course, they just call and say, hey, we're doing an event with these kind of views. These are the kind of people that are going to be there. Would you be interested in attending and perhaps signing some books, maybe giving a speech to people? And then you have the decision of deciding, do I want to go to promote myself or do I want to stay home or am I busy? Of course, anytime I've been asked, unfortunately, my schedule was in the way. So I haven't been to any of these conferences, so I don't know the inner workings on how you're compensated. If they pay your bills, if they give you extra money, if you're on a payroll. So whatever happens with Lauren Chen and her husband, Liam Donovan, that's between them and God, as far as I'm concerned. Among the people they hired last year was Chen's longtime friend and occasional collaborator, Lauren Southern, again, who used to work for Rebel News. But she's another Canadian far-right influencer with a massive social media following. Now, Lauren Chen has built up quite the reputation over the years. Or Lauren Southern, sorry. Lauren Southern used to work for Rebel News, and now Rebel News is scrambling, trying to defend themselves because they're being labeled now as being in bed with the Russians as well. Even though they're not. I'm going to state that. They're not. Ezra Levant, of all people, is not in bed with the Russians. In a few short months it operated, the outlet produced a steady stream of content favorable to Donald Trump, including an appearance by his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump. So again, Laura Trump does a lot of media circling. She does a lot of interviews. She does press for Donald Trump. It's no surprise she would show up on a large channel to talk about the policies of Donald Trump. Again, CBC pointing out Donald Trump as if it's somehow a scarlet letter, that if you associate with him, you're the enemy. And this is again where I'm saying, if they want to talk about propaganda, paid influence, this is them setting up to silence Canadians, silence Americans. Kamala Harris said that if you've supported Donald Trump and we take this White House, we're coming after you. She has physically said that out in public, in quotes, that there's no stone that won't be unturned. We will find you. This is how the CBC dresses up Donald Trump, that if guilt by association. Since the indictment was made public, several tenant media collaborators have come forward to claim they were unaware of how the company was funded. And again, like I stated, anytime these companies reach out to anybody, it's, would you like to come to this event? Would you like to be here? Nobody says, who are you funded by? Who are you dealing with? Usually they'll call and tell you who their guests are, who they've got involved, the days they're doing these things, the purpose of what they're doing. Now, all that being said, it is up to the person going to this event as a speaker or as an influencer to do their just due diligence to find out who exactly runs this company. These allegations clearly show that I and other commentators were victims of this scheme. Says Dave Rubin, a right-wing pundit with 2.45 million YouTube subscribers, wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter. But Southern and Chen have yet to speak publicly. Reached by phone on Thursday, Chen told the CBC News, "We're not commenting at this time." Southern did not respond to email. Of course, they're not going to talk to the CBC. The Canadian, the Communist Broadcast Corporation. You want to talk about commies, Marxists? Look no further than the CBC, who take millions every year from Canadian taxpayers to peddle this garbage. Neither has posted anything online since the indictment was made public. Again, a lot of their channels were deleted. Neither Chen, Donovan, nor Southern are subject to criminal charges, and none are named in the indictment. So if they're not named in the indictment, what are we talking about here? This is a witch hunt. You guys remember during the Freedom Convoy, when it was Russia, Russia, Russia? They got all their money from Russia. The allegations have jeopardized their standing within right-wing circles. Chen has already been fired from another conservative website, Glenn Beck's The Blaze. Her YouTube channel, which had more than 572,000 subscribers, was terminated on Thursday, and her bio page on the website for Turning Point USA, a pro-Trump campus activist group, has been deleted. YouTube also removed Tenet Media's channel on Thursday, saying it violated our community guidelines. How? Again, that's one thing I will always criticize YouTube for. They don't really give you any explanation as to why they're doing things. They just go, oh, beep, boop, beep. You did this. You're out. See you later. Born in Quebec and raised in Hong Kong, Chen rose to fame as a YouTuber under the moniker Roaming Millennial. She was an outspoken supporter of Donald Trump in 2016 and an eager soldier in the early years of the culture wars. She's situated as part of the broader conservative apparatus that seeks to instill social and cultural values that align with certain interests concerning anti-immigration, anti-alphabet community rights, and anti-feminism, said Ivani Ledig, who studied both Chen and Southern for her book Woman of the Far Right, released last year. Again, well, let's get a plug in there for somebody who released a book because we're pushing that propaganda. As her subscriber base grew into the hundreds of thousands, Chen began making appearances on popular conservative outlets such as Fox News and the Daily Wire, again naming other outlets that they want to smear. In the indictment, Chen appears to be referred to as Founder One, and is says to have begun working in the parent company of RT, the Russian state-run news outlet, in the spring of 2021. RT was forced to stop operating in both the US and Canada as part of government-imposed sanctions in response to the 2022 invasion of the Ukraine. In the timeline laid out by the U.S. officials, Founder One began recruiting conservative personalities with lucrative offers in 2023 for a new media outlet, all while being paid to do so by RT operatives. Again, I don't know what personalities they're talking about here, but again, if you're referring to the We Unify event, I mean, Marty up north was out $700 from his costs. I don't know if that's lucrative, but... From the details provided in the indictment, Chen was allegedly billing RT in part through Roaming Millennial Inc., a company registered in the Montreal area where her mother lived. Tenet Media was eventually registered in Tennessee as a subsidiary of Chen's Canadian company. When Tenet Media launched in November, the RT operatives are suspected of having directed the two founders on how to cover certain stories and what content to circulate on social media. Again, I don't know the in-depth explanation as to what's going on. And again, that indictment is between the Department of Justice and whoever is conducting these interviews or going through this evidence. However, what they're essentially talking about here is if a company hires you, and I'm not defending anybody here, of course they're going to tell you what's trending, what they should talk about, what they shouldn't talk about. You've seen it on this channel. Anytime something happens with Justin Trudeau that's going to make tracks, it's covered on this channel. I don't see it as any more than that. Again, an indictment probably has more details, so it's just speculation from me. Among the examples listed in the indictment, the operators instructed Chen to produce content that blamed the United States and Ukraine for the March 2024 attack in Moscow that was claimed by ISIS. Since Tenet Media began publishing content, Southern has produced several videos for the outlet focusing on Canadian issues. Their titles range from Canada's becoming a communist hellhole, which compares Canada to Russia, and Mean Tweets equals life in prison in Canada, which criticizes the proposed Online Harms Act. Well, they're talking now about putting people in jail for disinformation. This is why people always say to me, why do you read news articles on your videos? Well, because then I'm not spouting disinformation. I'm taking an actual printed article that hasn't been retracted, that hasn't been changed in their notes. I'm saying their words to you. So if that's disinformation, I don't know what else is. If you think naively that the Russians don't care as much about influencing Canadian thought, penetrating the Canadian government at all levels, like penetrating the cabinets, I'm here to tell you that they care deeply about shaping how you think, how you vote, and sowing chaos and discord, said Richard Faden, former director of CSIS. This is very surprising. Again, I know I keep cutting in. I want to make sure all the bases are covered here. Pierre Poilievre always said that anytime Justin Trudeau distracts, he's talking about the things he's done while blaming it on others to make them look bad. This is essentially what they're talking about. They're trying to care about influencing Canadian thought by penetrating all levels. Well, what about the WEF? Penetrating the cabinets. You'll own nothing. You'll be happy. When you look at the lockdowns, when you look at everything that went on, they're essentially saying they care deeply about shaping how you think, how you vote, and sowing chaos and discord. That's what's happened in Canada over the last 10 years under Justin Trudeau. What the hell? This is where I find it such a mockery that they come out and spew this. Like, talk about putting the pot in the frickin' kettle. Southern, who grew up in British Columbia, was one of the early stars of the alt-right movement. Again, CBC. Shame on you for that. Known for her videos in which she confronted progressive activists. She also traveled widely and made connections with far-right movements in Europe, South Africa, and Australia, helping circulate extremist ideas more widely. Southern was an early prominent of the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, which holds that white majority populations are being replaced by radicalized migrants, and that has been cited by several far-right terrorists. Terrorists! That is what's happening in Canada. Justin Trudeau just had to about pace on temporary foreign workers because there's too many. He's had to start shipping them back because he's worried about his numbers. But the Clown Broadcasting Corporation wants to come out and say, no, this is all Lauren Southern and her racist views, while also showing her wearing a MAGA helmet. The theory was seen as very fringe, as something you might only find in the dark corners of the internet. Well, welcome to everybody who's in the dark corners of the internet here. Today it has become quite a mainstream and to some extent popular idea. On Thursday, Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc said the government was working with the U.S. on this serious matter. Any Canadians who illegally assist in Russia's persistent attempts to use disinformation, criminal and covert activities, and corruption to undermine our sovereignty and democratic processes will face the full force of Canadian law, he said in a statement. Well, again, while we're getting on that, since we're talking about Russia on this video, I am going to put out there, I'm not spreading any misinformation. I'm not trying to undermine Canada's sovereignty, but merely bring news to those who aren't getting it by mainstream purposes. And I am not promoting RT, Russia, Lauren Chen, or Lauren Southern in any way. There, now that that's out of the way. Intelligence experts say the details in the indictment were further indication of the scope of Russia's efforts to influence the American election. Surprise, surprise, that's less than 2 months away. We have not seen an advisory attempt or influence an American election to this degree ever before, said Frank Figzuli, former FBI Assistant Director of Counterintelligence. Again, remember the FBI pushing on Donald Trump? I mentioned this earlier. Russia, Russia, Russia. They found nothing. Here they go again. He warned that despite the focus on the impact of Russian propaganda of the U.S. election, Canadians are not immune to the influence of disinformation campaigns. The Russian overreaching objective is to increase the level of discontent in our institutions, and the institutions in all of Western Canada countries, he said. There is no rational reason that I can think of why Canada would be exempted. Now, it says here, corrections. So while the CBC wants to talk about their disinformation, I mean, look at the guy who wrote the article. He looks like a favorable moron. The world's most useful idiot. The spelling of Liam Donovan's name has been updated. That's it. That's their only correction. None of this that we're spewing false information, that they're spreading disinformation. Again, I will point out that it does say that Lauren Chen's and Lauren Southern's names were not mentioned by name in the indictment, yet here we are going full bore against it. Now, again, I'm not going to speak to the level of what that indictment says, the reasons behind Lauren Chen and Lauren Southern being named in this. I know nothing when it comes to that. So again, I could be wrong, and I could not know what their dealings have been, where they've been getting their money from. But what I can tell you is, again, the other influencers have taken part in their conventions, their meetings, any events or interviews, I can assure you, have not taken a dime or are aware if any ties have been held to Lauren Southern and Lauren Chen. Again, that is for a court to decide. But this is an attack on free speech, ladies and gentlemen. This is an attack on how you consume products. The CBC can come out and write these scathing articles talking about far-right Terrys while we get slammed, shut down, shadow banned, removed from platforms, have our channels deleted, our livelihoods taken away. This is no more than the country trying to once again turn its citizens against itself and say that this is a damnation of free speech. Every Canadian watching this video should be concerned. should be scared about the future and what this means for the future. And again, as soon as Pierre Poilievre makes a statement about what is going on, we will be covering that here on the channel. Again, I encourage everybody who's watched this very lengthy video, leave a thumbs up or a comment down below. Again, YouTube is going to try to squash this video as much as they possibly can. Those thumbs up and comments help push it out there and help gets it past its silly algorithm. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure to hit that bar and also click your button for notifications. Again, as this channel will probably be deleted at some point for reporting on these things, make sure you're notified for every video that comes forward. And also join me every Friday here on the channel live for Friday Night Fringe, where we talk about everything that's happened in the past week in politics, everything coming up in the week ahead, and some back and forth within our community. I always enjoy sitting to talk with you guys outside of making these videos and hear what you have to say in those live streams, as well as my wife, Mrs. Fringe. And we look forward to seeing you each and every Friday night here on the channel. Again, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, every Friday here on the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.